Section 1.3 is properties of exponents. And in this section, the goal is to learn the properties of exponents and how to apply them properly. Okay? So, let's start out with the definition. So, here, if A is any real number and N is any natural number, then A raised to the N means we multiply A times itself N times. So they're N factors of the A. In this expression, A to the N, A is called our base. N is called the exponent. That's called our exponent. Okay? So, properties of exponents. Let A and B represent variables or more complicated algebraic expressions. They can also be constants. Okay? Let N and M represent integers. Property 1. A raised to the 0 is equal to 1, provided that A is not equal to 0. So 0 to the 0 is undefined for reasons that are similar to we cannot divide by 0. Okay? So A to the 0 is equal to 1, provided A is not equal to 0. Good. A to the N times A to the M is equal to A raised to the N plus M. So if your two expressions have the same base and you're multiplying them, that means you add their exponents and keep the base. Okay? If you have A to the N divided by A to the M, that's equal to A raised to the N minus M. A raised to the negative N is equal to 1 over A raised to the N. A raised to the N, that quantity to the mth power, is equal to A raised to the N times M. So here you do what? You do what to the exponents? Do what to them? Multiply them. Good. When you have A times B raised to the N, that's equal to A to the N times B to the N. A over B raised to the N is equal to A to the N divided by B to the N. These are your properties of exponents. Okay? We're going to do an example or do a few examples on the next page. If you need to take a screenshot of this, if you need to take a picture of it, go ahead and take a picture of it. You can use your phones to take a picture of it if you did not print out your notes. You ready? That's a question. All right. So now let's say it again. Division, yes. Because using our rule, if we have x to the 5th over x to the 8th, what property are we going to use? Property 3, which subtracts our exponents. So we have x to the 5 minus 8, which is x to the what? What's 5 minus 8? What's 5 minus 8? I'm hearing 3. Negative 3, yes? And in the end, we want positive exponents. So we would then use property what? Say it loud. 4 to rewrite that as what? Talk loud. 1 over what? In our case? X to the 3rd power. So that's part of our problem. We have to go back and do our problem, but I just wanted to break it down for you to show you what we're going to do. Does that make sense? So now that we know our approach, let's go back and do our problem. Are we good here? That's a yes or no? Yes. Okay. Examples. Use the properties of exponents to simplify each of the following expressions, writing your answer with only positive exponents. So at the end, we want to make sure we have positive exponents only. Okay? So that will require us to use our properties. Okay? So for part A, we have 9 raised to the 0 times x cubed times y to the 0. 9 to the 0 is what? 1. Good. We're using property what? 1. Very good. Yeah? That says a to the 0 is equal to 1, provided that a is not equal to 0. That's what we're using. So 9 to the 0 is 1. X cubed is x cubed. It is what it is. What's y to the 0? Say it loud. Yes, good. So 1 times x cubed times 1 is? X cubed. Very good. That's our answer for A. That's our answer for A. What questions do you have? Okay. B. B, we have x raised to the 5th times y raised to the negative 5th times z to the negative 11th. All of that divided by x to the 8th over z to the negative 7th. How can we make our lives easier here? Combine like terms where possible. What do you mean by that in this case? Say what? Exponents? How?
Adding or subtracting.
Which one? What is our overall operation? You're on the right track. Simplifying it, but what is our operation that tells us whether we add or subtract the exponents? As we are dividing, that means if we have an x to the 5th over x to the 8th, that's the same thing as x to the what? Do we have a? So here, we can rewrite this as x raised to the 5 minus 8. Y is just raised to the what? Negative 5, yes. And then z raised to the negative 11 minus what? Negative 7. Good. So then we get x raised to the what power?
Third.
What's 5 minus 8? Negative 3. So negative 3. Y raised to the negative 5. And then z we have to simplify a little bit with that exponent. So that's negative 11. We're subtracting a negative 7, so that becomes a what? Positive 7. So then we get x to the negative 3rd, y to the negative 5th, times z to the, what's negative 11 plus 7? Negative 4. Very good. And now we want our final answer to have positive exponents. So now you need to recall rule or property 4 that we said, where you have a to the negative n is equal to 1 over a to the n. That's what we're going to use. So now this is equal to 1 over x cubed times y to the 5th times z to the 4th. Very good. That's your final answer. What questions do you have? None? Okay.
The y just flipped to a positive.
Say it again.
The y just flipped to a positive by itself.
So we used this property for that y. So when you have y to the negative 5, that's 1 over y to the 5 using this property. Good question. What other questions do you have? What other questions do you have? Okay. All right. So part C then. Part C, we have 4 raised to the negative second times x to the fifth times y to the negative third times z to the fourth, all of that raised to the negative second. What two properties are you going to use in this problem? Fifth property and? So we're going to use, in this problem, we'll use a raised to the n to the m is equal a raised to the n times m. And what other property? Can't hear you. The fourth one, yes, we'll use that. A raised to the negative n equals 1 over a to the n. What other property? One more. What other property are we going to use? Parentheses AB raised to the equals A to the N. You got it. Good. Those are the 3 properties we're going to use here. Okay? So let's go ahead and do that. So we are going to have, this is equal to 4 raised to the negative second raised to the negative second. So right now, we're using this property. We're using property 6 times x to the fifth raised to the negative second times y to the negative third raised to the negative second times what? Times what?
E.
You said times negative 2 or raised to the? Okay, raised to the negative 2. Good. So we successfully used this property. Now we're going to use this property, which was property 5. Tell me what we get. Someone who has not answered today, tell me what we get. Come on. Say it loud. Who's talking? Go ahead. Talk loud. 4 raised to the 4, because you're multiplying negative 2 times negative 2. Yes, keep going. Talk a little bit louder. Yes. Good. Good. So we successfully used that property. Now what?
Use other operation to make sure the exponent is positive.
Okay, go. What do we have?
We can do x the negative 10 first.
What's happening to the rest of the terms? So what happens to 4 raised to the 4th? Say what? Simplify it to get what? Wouldn't you, she said, wouldn't you multiply 4 times 4 times 4 times 4? Yes? To get what? What's 4 times itself? 4 times. Nope, 4 times 4 is 16. That's 2 4s. 16 times 4 is 64. That's 3 4s. 64 times 4 is 256. That's 4 raised to the 4th. So we get 256 times what? Times negative 10? X raised to the? Good morning. So you're technically absent for today, yes?
Yeah.
Because it's 10:15? Okay. 256 times what? X to the negative 10? Y to the 6? Z to the negative 8. So, good so far. Very good. So, what stays in our numerator? What goes to our denominator? Tell me what we have. What's in our numerator? Say what? 1, you said? I'm asking. Okay, go. 256. Stay in the numerator, move to the denominator. Where does it go? Is it negative? Does it have a negative exponent? No. Does it have a negative exponent? No. So does it go to the denominator? No. Does it have a negative exponent? No. Does it go to the denominator? It stays in the? Yes. 256 stays in the numerator. X to the negative 10th moves where? Becomes x to the what? 10th. Yes. Keep going. Come on now. Y to the 6 goes where? Top. Numerator. Yes. That's it. That's it. Very good. Very good. What questions do you have? Negative exponents. If the instructions say in your final answer, make sure you have positive exponents, that means if you have a negative exponent, then that expression that has the negative exponent moves to your denominator. Or if it's in your denominator, it moves to your numerator, right? Okay. So, D, we have 2 squared times 2 cubed. What property do we use here? The second property. Good. So that means we have 2 raised to the what? The second plus, yes, which gives us 2 raised to the 5th, which is what? 32. Good. Okay. This is properties of exponents. Make sure you go through and understand them. Okay? That's section 1.3. What questions do you have? Okay, make sure you do your homework.